Welcome to the Planet B podcast, where truth, transformation, and faith converge. Join us as we flip the script on ecological despair, guided by Dr. Sailesh Rao's vision for a compassionate, rewilded vegan world. Let's begin the journey to the greatest transformation in human history.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the Planet B podcast. Today, we continue our deep dive into the Oxford Union debate. Dr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having this. This has been exciting.
Let's begin with the opening quotes by William Penn.
Yeah, William Penn said, "In all debates, let truth be thy aim, not victory or an unjust interest." So basically, a debate should be about discerning the truth.
Right.
So we are giving our points of view, but the ultimate objective is to help the audience and ourselves discern the truth. Meaning you have to be open to changing your mind when you hear something that other person is saying that points out something that's wrong in what you're thinking. But we had a debate on this topic, on whether the world should go vegan or not, at the Oxford Union in 2023, November. And I didn't hear anything that would make me change my mind. I'm sorry to say. Yeah. Well, I guess, in that sense, the truth is pretty clear about this.
Let's begin with what was the Oxford Union debate and who participated in this debate?
So the Oxford Union happens to be the oldest debating society still operating today. Okay, it's 200 years old as of 2023. So it was started in 1823, and it was started by students at Oxford University protesting against the fact that they couldn't speak out on certain topics. They couldn't discuss certain topics within the university. So they went out and said, we're going to discuss it anyway. And they started doing this. And now it is one of the most famous debating platforms in the world, because lots of debates happen once a week during term. So they organized the final debate of the 200th year of the Oxford Union to be the debate on the topic, "This house would go vegan."
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. They call it term. That term, president of the Oxford Union happened to be vegan.
Oh, wow.
So she wanted to have this debate.
That's great.
She had been vegan for 3 years when I met her. And her name is Disha Hegde. So she led she was the first speaker for the proposition. The debate happens with 4 people on either side. So totally there are 8 speakers. And each speaker gets about 10 minutes. The students and faculty of Oxford are in the audience. And they're all members of the union, the Oxford Union. Okay. It's not an official Oxford University entity, as you can imagine, because the students walked out of the university to start this.
Yeah.
But since then, a lot of people have gone through the Oxford Union. The alumni support the Oxford Union to hold these debates. So there's a proposition that's being debated, and there are 4 people who speak for the proposition and 4 people who speak against the proposition. And we alternate. So it's led off by the first speaker for the proposition, then first speaker speaks against the proposition, and then for, against, and so on. So we had arranged it so that for the proposition, we had one person speaking about ethics, one person speaking about the environment, one person speaking about health, and the president led it off. Yeah, she covered a lot of the topics as an intro. And against the proposition also, they had a similar breakdown. There was an environmental expert, and there was an ethics expert, She called us an ethics expert.
Yeah, I would say there wasn't. The thing is, when I watched that debate, it seemed like the vegan group was very formalized and structured, but then the other side was a little crazy.
Yeah, this is why I said I didn't hear anything that made me change my mind, because their arguments were not very cohesive. Let's put it that way.
Hmm,
But you can watch all 8 videos on our website and on YouTube. You can so if we assume like 10 minutes per person and 2 minutes for prep, that's about an hour and a half right there for just the speeches. And then before the speeches, we had a nice formal dinner, and the dinner was entirely vegan because the
nice.
president of the Oxford Union was vegan. Besides, if you have a debate like this, I think the dinner has to be vegan because everybody can eat vegan food, but the vegans cannot eat the non-vegan food,
All right.
right? So, and it was very nice. It was a very nice dinner. But you can hear one of the people who spoke against the proposition, Katie Hopkins, was not very happy with the dinner she got to eat. And so
Uh,
she took off on that. Yeah.
well, I think this would be a good time to play your section of the debate. So we will have people enjoy your 10 minutes section, and then we'll come back after.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's really my privilege to speak at a venue where 200 years ago you began rebelling against false orthodoxy. Today, I want to rebel with you against false orthodoxy by speaking on bovine matters. I mean, of course, cows. There is a cow in the room, and not everyone can see it. I hope that by the end of this debate, eyes will be opened. The orthodoxy, the herd opinion, if you like, is that animal agriculture has little to do with climate change. I believe that is very wrong. I believe that based on data. I am an environmentalist by occupation, but a systems engineer by profession. And systems is what I do. I invented the protocol for transforming early analog internet connections to more robust digital connections while accelerating them tenfold. Still today, any data accessed on the internet likely passed through a device implementing this protocol. So I plead that this House rebel once again and vote for the proposition that this House would go vegan. Veganism is defined as a philosophy and way of living that seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose. It is a very British movement. It started in the UK. The proposition asks that this House go vegan, not be vegan, implying that this is a journey, not a destination. And I highly recommend this journey on ethical, health, and environmental grounds. And I will now focus on the environmental reasons to go vegan. It is undeniable that human civilization has adversely impacted life support systems on the planet. Scientists have identified 9 planetary boundaries that we must stay within for the sustainability of life on Earth. At the moment, we have transgressed 6 of them. And any one of these transgressions is enough to kill life as we know it on this planet. The good news is that when we go vegan, we help resolve all 6 of them. That's the power we have as individuals to reverse our existential crisis. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of ecological destruction because it uses 37% of the ice-free land area of the planet just to graze animals, while bottom trawling an area of the ocean floor the size of South America every year for industrial fishing. Animal agriculture is the only major activity in which we destroy forests and replace them not with other trees for timber or paper, but with grass, which drastically reduces the diversity of life that the land can support. Animal agriculture is the primary reason why humans have reduced the number of trees on the planet by half, from 6 trillion to 3 trillion over the past 10,000 years. Restoring those 3 trillion trees can draw down enough carbon to completely reverse climate change. Animal agriculture is grossly inefficient because animals must eat 39 pounds of plants to produce 1 pound of human food on average, a burden which the world can no longer afford. By going vegan, we can give nearly 40% of the land area of the planet back to nature, as well as the entire ocean. When we restore the native ecosystems on that land, we can grow most of the 3 trillion trees that we cut down over the past 10,000 years. This helps resolve all 6 planetary boundary transgressions. The least violated transgression is freshwater change. Rewilding the land that's currently used for grazing animals will restore the freshwater cycles of the planet. The next is land system change. Going vegan will allow us to return nearly 40% of the land area of the planet back to nature, resolving this planetary boundary transgression. The next worst transgression is climate change, which can be resolved when the excess carbon in the atmosphere is absorbed in the trees and soil that we can restore to the ecosystems of the planet. The next is chemical pollution, which will be safely stored away in regenerating forests when we go vegan. Eating animal foods currently delivers concentrated doses of this chemical pollution into our bodies through bioaccumulation. Therefore, going vegan addresses chemical pollution for both the earth and for ourselves. The next worst transgression is nitrogen and phosphorus loading, mainly through our overuse of synthetic fertilizers for crops. Since over half the crops are being fed to animals, going vegan will resolve this transgression as well. All of these transgressions impact wildlife, and therefore biodiversity loss is the worst of the 6 planetary boundary transgressions. By restoring habitats for wild animals and allowing them to freely live in the ocean, we resolve this transgression as well. If instead we let wild animals die, we die. It's that serious. There are 2 explanations for perhaps the greatest threat ever faced by civilization and all life on Earth: the imminent danger of runaway climate change. One explanation, the one we hear about all the time from our leading climate spokespeople, is the burning of fossil fuels. It is certainly true that the burning of fossil fuels contributes greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, thereby warming the planet. But the other explanation, what I call the cow in the room, is rarely addressed: the human folly of exploiting animals. That is animal agriculture. Excuse me. When these 2 sources of greenhouse gases are compared in the media, fossil fuel burning is almost always emphasized and is almost always assigned the greater responsibility for causing climate change. But the opposite is true. When you factor in the potential carbon absorption of the forest land that is cleared for animal agriculture, you find, with any honest accounting, as I published in a peer-reviewed paper, that animal agriculture is responsible for at least 87% of greenhouse gases on an annual basis. When I made that calculation, I did not include the respiration of farmed animals. I did not include the bottom trawling of the oceans by industrial fishing. I did not include the carbon released by pasture maintenance fires set annually on grazing lands around the world. I did not include the loss of phytoplankton populations and sea forests due to industrial fishing. I did not include these factors mainly because they haven't been reliably assessed due to a futile attempt by the orthodoxy to hide the cow in the room. But it seems clear to me that if we could estimate these factors and include them in our calculation, we would find that animal agriculture is responsible for, wait for it, more than 100% of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Now that sounds unbelievable. How could it possibly be responsible for more than 100%? Because the evidence points to the possibility that the earth will cool in a vegan world even if we continue all our other activities as we do today. The cessation of animal agriculture will result in healthy oceans, healthy forests, and healthy soils. And if we want to reverse climate change, then we must adopt a strategy that can draw down greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Healthy oceans and sea forests can do that. Healthy soils and trees can do that. Solar panels and electric cars cannot. Now, I'm not a supporter of the fossil fuel industry. Far from it. It's my engineering assessment that we must wean ourselves off fossil fuels eventually, but gradually. But if we burn fossil fuels to heat and cool our homes, to transport ourselves, to ship goods, to manufacture goods, these are all social goods. What social good comes from animal agriculture? Nothing. Only obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, biodiversity destruction, soil depletion, falling of our waterways, antibiotic resistance, dangerous and dehumanizing work, animal cruelty, climate catastrophe, world hunger, and let's not forget pandemics. Indeed, there is nothing that will not improve when we end the cruelty and folly of exploiting animals. I have just given you the intellectual reasons to go vegan. But lasting change comes not from the head, but from the heart. In that regard, I have made a pinky promise to our granddaughter, Kimaya, that the world will go largely vegan by 2026, which is the year we will have killed almost all the wild animals on Earth if we do not change course. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that true to your 200-year tradition of rebelling against false orthodoxy, this House will once again break away from the herd, see the cow in the room, and vote for the proposition to help our generation keep this sacred promise for all the children of the world. Thank you for your consideration from the bottom of my heart.
Dr. Rao, what was the audience reaction to your speech and the proposition that we should go vegan?
No, during my speech, my granddaughter was there in the audience. And my wife was there, my son was there. And you notice that during the speech, I couldn't peel a piece of paper from the other one. The two pieces of paper got stuck. So I spent about 15 seconds trying to get the paper apart because I wanted to make sure that I covered all the things I needed to say. Right? So I wrote it all down and I didn't memorize it. So I just, so because I had that delay during the speech, when I mentioned 2026, the bell rang. I have made a pinky promise to our granddaughter Kimaya that the world will go largely vegan by 2026.
Wow, that's incredible.
So if you notice that, and it happened, and for me, I was just stunned when that happened. So it's because as if Mother Nature is, fiddling with things so that it landed exactly at the 10-minute spot, so that they would ring the bell for me.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Then I finished soon after, and I got a good ovation from the audience. And at the end, so the way they vote is that everyone walks either to the left of the door or to the right of the door. So they put a pole in the middle of the door. Okay. If you walk to the right of the door, you are for the proposition. If you walk to the left of the door, you're against the proposition. And apparently the line that was walking out the door for the proposition was so long that some of the people at the back said, oh, they're going to win anyway, and they walked out the other side. because they knew our side was going to win. But the official tally is 112 to 84.
Nice.
Yeah, 112 for the proposition and 84 against the proposition, which means technically the House would go vegan,
Mm,
which in a way it's a direction to Oxford to go vegan, okay, from the student body. I mean, Oxford is very vegan friendly. I have to admit that, half the main dishes are vegan. And when I went to have lunch at one of the halls there, everyone was eating only the vegan food. I didn't see anyone eating the non-vegan food, even though it was
wow,
available. Yeah.
that's great.
At least at my table, everyone was eating the vegan food. So
So
people are
what did
beginning to be much more aware
right,
that this is not just an ethical issue of conscience. It's an issue of how you're impacting the environment and the planet for everybody.
exactly.
So that secondhand eating, which is that our choices for what we eat has an impact on the entire planet. Okay, whereas with secondhand smoking, smoking had an impact on those around us. Okay, not the entire planet. I mean, you could argue it eventually diffuses and goes to the entire planet, but it's
Mm.
so diluted by that time. But this one has an impact on the entire planet, right? Because we normalize this as a culture, eating animals.
Because of the numbers that you gave of each side, there was probably around 220-ish people in the room. And
Right.
a lot of those people who went to that vegan side probably were not fully vegan. So it's really encouraging to see that the non-vegan people, even though they aren't yet, they are moving in that vegan direction. And it's encouraging for all the vegan activists out there to say, hey,
Right.
when we present the message in a good way, that it does change people.
Oh, absolutely. Because people at Oxford are thinkers, they're thinking. And when you're thinking, you kind of realize very quickly that this is the right thing to do at this time.
What lasting impact do you think the debate will have?
Oh, the debate it basically drew a line in the sand saying, now it is very, very clear that the world is going to go vegan.
Right.
Okay? The students who represent the next generation are saying that the world is going to be vegan. Now, they're saying it for very logical reasons about the environment, for ethics and so on, which means the sooner we adopt it, the better it is for their world that they're going to
Mm,
inherit,
yeah.
right? So I say that it sends a message to the older generation, like my generation, to get on with it. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling my generation, once they voted, once they said that, we have to get on with it. We cannot just dilly-dally, right? Because it's their future that you're determining.
Did anything be put in place at the university itself because of the uh, response to that debate?
Well, so the first speaker was the current president of the Oxford Union, and the second speaker was the incoming president,
Nice.
who is going to
Uh,
become the president at the next term.
uh,
And she was speaking against the proposition.
oh dear.
And she was saying, hey, if you pass this, I have to take away your cream. I have to take away your muffins. So I wrote to her after that saying, did you do it? Because you lost. You said you have to take away once you lose, right? But I didn't
Yeah.
hear back from her.
Oh, boo. No response.
Yeah, because she threatened the people, if you don't, please don't vote for it because I'll really have to do it if you vote for it.
Uh, it's funny because I just think of Planet A. Like when you say that, I just think Planet A of just the political issue of like,
Right,
oh, I'll do it, but no, it doesn't happen.
right. Yeah. But I think it obviously has an impact because we are going to keep bringing it up. I
Mm,
keep bringing it up saying students have spoken that the future is vegan. Right? And once you realize the future is vegan, we have to get on with it. In that sense, it was a very important debate that happened.
that's fun. Yeah. So I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, but where can people watch the debate?
Go to climatehealers.org/Oxford Union debate. And all the videos are there in the right order on the homepage of that.
Wonderful. And again, you mentioned this a little bit as well, but if you could expand on it, if you don't mind, is why is it important to get this message out to the youth, this vegan message?
We are all indoctrinated with myths on planet A. Okay. And the myths tell us to go against this message. The myths kind of tell you that protein is only found in animal foods, and calcium is only found in dairy foods. So these are essential components of your diet that you have to eat and so on. So the myth is something that you do unconsciously, okay? Because everyone is doing it around you. It's like the air you breathe, you normally breathe like that. So the myth is the way society operates, and you just go along with it. And it's important to reach the youth and help them think consciously out of it, out of that myth.
All right.
Okay? So that's the only way to break a myth like that. And so you have to consciously now adopt axioms as opposed to unconsciously following myths. The myth controls you, and you control the axioms that you choose. And going vegan is about adopting new axioms in your life. So it's saying these axioms are not what the prevailing culture is saying is the right thing to do, but this is in alignment with who I really am. And it's important to get the youth out of that, break the trance that they are in with the myths and break them out of it as soon as possible, because those myths are literally destroying the planet around us.
Yeah. One of your big topics you discuss on Planet B is education, education, education. How do you think the education system should change so that this message is being properly shared with the youth, and then the youth feel empowered to go and bring about Planet B through veganism, through rewilding, and through all the efforts that are being propagated by climate healers?
Well, ideally, I would like all educational institutions to adopt the Planet B axioms. Because the Planet B axioms, the axioms that we have been talking about, are logical, and you can verify that they are correct.
Yeah.
They appear to be true at this time, right? And if an educational institution is not aligned with the truth, then it's lost its entire legitimacy.
Right.
Right. See, this is why once I found out that I had been lied to in my education about protein and calcium, I was very upset initially. I was like, how dare they lie to me? I mean, I trusted these people, right? So you lose that, trust. And this is why I am telling education institutions, please, as quickly as possible, change your curriculum. Adopt the axioms and change your curriculum. Discard the myths, because they are lying to people. They're lying to their students, misleading them. And even if it is being done unconsciously, we have to persuade them to consciously adopt the right axioms. So that's why education is the most important, because if the educational institutions are aligned with the axioms, they will have default vegan in their cafeteria. I want people to make that choice themselves, but you have to make it easy for them to make that choice. You have to make healthy, delicious vegan food normal in the cafeterias as the baseline. And even, charge them more for destroying the planet.
Right.
If they want to eat meat or animal foods, they have to pay more, which I think is very reasonable. Because then they have to consciously make that choice, right? Whereas right now they're unconsciously making that choice.
Yeah.
So we have to raise that level, and it's the responsibility of education institutions to educate for the future. So as soon as the Oxford Union said the future is vegan, all education institutions have to educate for the future, right? That's, to me, is logical.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Rao, how do you think we could get this message out more to the youth? So, we've talked about different education initiatives and things, which are very exciting, which hopefully will be coming about this year. What ways do you think we can get this message out the best to our next generation?
Well, ideally, I would like the professors to, to adopt these axioms. Do they not believe that all life is interdependent? All these axioms that we are talking about, it's scientifically valid, right? At the moment.
Yeah.
So then it'll happen organically if they do that. Otherwise, we are going and talking to students and telling them to defy their professors.
Right. It's true. Yeah.
Right? And it makes it very difficult because the current education system is all about top-down. The professor knows more than you. That's why they're the professor. And they are going to teach you what you should know as a student. That's the kind of pedagogy that we have today. And in that pedagogy, it's important to get the professors on board. And a lot of the professors already know. Yeah?
Yeah.
They know. But it takes courage to go against the grain and to tell the truth.
Yeah. So we should really be going to the professors. Like, if we could get to have these conversations with the professors, maybe a really good first step.
Right. Yeah. We could have like a, debate with professors, right? Not just the students. The students organize this debate, but we need to probably engage the professors as well and get it all out. Yeah. I'm thinking of organizing a conference, inviting academics to come and submit papers on Planet B. Critique it.
Right.
Tell me why I'm wrong. Right? Tell me why this is not the right way to do it.
It kind of encourages them to do a deep dive themselves then, to try to poke holes in it.
Right.
It's a really good idea.
Can invite contributions from academics.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, Dr. Rao, as we wrap up episode 26 on the Oxford Union debates, is there any closing message you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, know that the future is vegan and you're part of it. And so help us make that future happen as quickly as possible.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Thank you so much to our audience today. And our next episode is one of my very favorite chapters in the book. It is chapter 27, Codes for a Healthy Earth. So I hope you all join us once again. So thank you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
This has been a podcast from Planet B, where progress includes all beings, not just humans. If you haven't moved here yet, we thank you for visiting.